Welcome back to Easy Learning 77, your complete Algebra 1 Semester 1 standards-based course. Remember, this is just one lesson out of many. So visit tinyurl.com/easylearning77 to look at all the lessons to help you get through Algebra 1 Semester 1. Thanks. All right, let's get this lesson started. So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about solving one-step equations. This is part one of solving one-step equations. In this lesson, we're going to use addition and subtraction. So as you can see, this fellow here on the left, he's got this bright, beautiful, smiling face, and he just loves Algebra 1 because it is easy. So let's see. Let's say we have a problem like this. Solve x minus 3 equals 10. And so what we have to keep in mind is, what are we trying to do? What is our goal? So when we solve an equation, the goal is to get the variable x by itself. In other words, it's going to be on one side of the equal sign, and everything else will be on the other side of the equal sign. So we don't know what will be on the other side. It could be 10. It could be negative 22. We don't know, but what we do know is this. We want x on one side of the equal sign all by itself. That is our goal when we solve. Okay, so here at the bottom, we've got our furry friend who's desperate for us to find out what x minus 3 equals 10 is. What is the solution? So we're going to solve x minus 3 equals 10. And remember, when you solve an equation, the goal is to get an equation where the variable x is all by itself on the left. So here's my equation, x minus 3 equals 10. And so since I want x by itself, I've got to get rid of that negative 3. So I ask myself, what's the opposite of negative 3? Well, it's positive 3. So I add 3 to both sides of the equal sign. What I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the second side of the equal sign. So when I look at the left side here, that negative 3 and that 3, they cancel out. 3 minus 3 is 0. And on the right side, I look at 10 plus 3. And so what I get is that x on the left side of the equal sign, x plus 0, because 3 minus 3 is 0. And over on the right side, I get 13 because 10 plus 3 is 13. But when I look at now I look at this equation, and x plus 0 is just x. So here's my final solution, x equals 13. And now our friend here at the bottom is happy to know that x is equal to 13. Okay, so now that we have a solution, let's check that solution to make sure it's correct. So our original equation says that x minus 3 is equal to 10. And here's our solution that we found. X equals 13 is our solution. And so what this means is that if you substitute the constant of, which is 13, into the expression x minus 3, we should get a result of 10. So here's my 13. And here's x minus 3, my mathematical expression. Now I'm going to substitute it in. 13 is going to get substituted in for x. And when I do that, when I put that 13 in for x, I get 13 minus 3. So do my calculation, 13 minus 3 is 10. So now I want to make sure I did this correctly. So I look at this 10, and over here I look at the original equation. It's supposed to be 10. And so since those numbers match, they're both 10, we conclude that our solution, x equals 13, correct, and here we are smiling. Remember, if you get a little confused or you're not sure about something, you can always pause the video. Also, you can rewind it and rewatch as many times as you want to make sure that you learn this really well. Okay, so here's our second example. Solve for x if x plus 7 equals 12. All we're asking you to do here is just to solve that equation for x. So when we solve an equation, the goal is to get an equation where the variable x is all by itself. And so this is our goal down here. Here's x by itself on the left side of the equal sign, and we don't know what's going to be on the right side, but we're going to solve to find out what it is. The main thing is when we solve for x, we get x all by itself on the left side of the equal sign. So now, here's my equation, x plus 7 equals 12. And so since I want x by itself, I have to get rid of that plus 7. So I ask myself, what is the opposite of plus 7? Well, it's negative 7. So I subtract by 7 on both sides of the equal sign. What I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other side of the equal sign. And so now let's look at the left side. I've got 7 minus 7. Well, 7 minus 7 is 0, so they just cancel out, leaving me the x on the left side of the equal sign. And then 12 minus 7 is equal to 5. So now that reduces down my equation down to x is equal to 5. So x is now all by itself on one side of the equal sign, the left side, and 5 is on the other side. So we have successfully solved for x. So we have a solution, x equals 5. But we want to check that solution now to make sure that when I plug it into x plus 7, I do get 12. So x equals 5 is my solution. And what that means is that when I substitute that constant 5 into the mathematical expression x plus 7, we should get our result of 12 like our original equation says. So here's my 5. Here's my mathematical expression x plus 7. I substitute constant 5 into x. And when I do that, I get 5 plus 7. And so 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. And now I look back at my original equation, and those 12s do match. And therefore, we conclude that our solution x equals 5 is correct. And so here we are smiling. Okay, here's our third problem. Solve x plus 5 equals 14. So we know that when we solve an equation, the goal is to get that equation where the variable x is all by itself. So here's what our equation should look like. This is our goal. Got x on the left side all by itself equals, and it's going to be equal to some number. We don't know yet, but the main thing is that x is all by itself. So here's my mathematical expression, x plus 5 equals 14. So I look at that plus 5. I need to get rid of that plus 5. And so I ask myself, what is the opposite of plus 5? Well, it's negative 5. So now, looking at the left side of that equal sign, I've got 5 minus 5. Those cancel out. And so I'm left with x on the left side of the equal sign. On the right side, I get 14 minus 5, and 14 minus 5 is 9. So x is all by itself, and we've solved for x successfully. Okay, so we have x equal 9 as our solution. So as always, now we're going to check our solution to make sure that x plus 5 is equal to 14. So here's my solution, x equals 9. And again, that means when I substitute that constant 9 into the mathematical expression x plus 5, we should get a result of 14. So here's my 9, and here's my x plus 5. And so I'm going to substitute 9 in for x. When I do that, I get 9 plus 5. And then finally, 9 plus 5 is equal to 14. So I double check to make sure that that's what our equation says, and yes, it does. We get those 14s matching, so that means that our solution, x equals 9, is correct. And so here we are looking very happy with ourselves because we've gotten our solution correct. Okay, let's look at another problem. Solve x minus 10 equals negative 17. So when we solve an equation, the goal is always to get that equation where the variable x is by itself, just like this. Here's x. It's all by itself on the left side of the equal sign. And we don't know what's going to be on the right side, but we do know that x is all by itself, and that's what we want when we solve. So here's my equation. X minus 10 equals negative 17. I need that x by itself, so I ask myself, what is the opposite of negative 10? Well, it's positive 10. So I will add 10 to both sides of this equation. So now I look at the left side, and I've got 10 minus 10, which is 0. So those cancel out, leave x by itself on the left side of the equal sign. On the right side, I've got negative 17 plus 10. And negative 17 plus 10 is equal to negative 7. So I've got my equation, x equals negative 7. X is all by itself, and so we've solved for x successfully. Okay, as always, we have a solution, but we always want to check that solution to make sure it's correct. So I look at my original equation, x minus 10 equals negative 17. And remember, negative 7 is our solution, which means that if I substitute that constant of negative 7 into the expression x minus 10, we should get a result of negative 17. And so here's my negative 7, the constant, and here's x minus 10, my mathematical expression. I substitute negative 7 into x, and when I do that, I'm going to get negative 7 minus 10, and when I do that calculation, that's going to be equal to negative 17. So I go back and I check my original equation, and those negative 17s do match, so we conclude that our solution x equals negative 7 is correct. And here we are again, looking very happy, and here we are even smiling now. Okay, so it's time to go ahead and practice these skills that you've learned. So you're going to solve all of these on paper, and you're going to turn them into your teacher. Please show your work for credit. You can pause the video to copy the problems. Also remember, you can always rewind this video to look at the examples again, or pause any of the examples so you can look at the work to make sure you understand it. So go ahead and pause this video. By the way, before you do, here's this guy. He's probably in your classroom, and he says the homework looks too hard, but it's not. Remember, this is easy. All it takes is a little practice. I want to thank you for watching this session of Easy Learning 77, your complete Algebra 1 Semester 1 course. Remember, to see all of the lessons, go to tinyurl.com/easylearning77. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.